stop having meat. Your body will thank you for that. The top institutions in the world saying that they've classified quite a few meats and dairy items under different categories of carcinogenic foods. So many people who get colon cancer, etc. It's literally because the meat ends up rotting in the stomach on the way to being digested. A little bit of research goes a long way because these things are not that complicated to understand.
What kind of change have you seen in your body since going vegan? Because I'm sure the sleep cycle improves, your digestion improves, your blood circulation improves. You want to tell me more about this, please?
No complaints at all. Energy levels are higher, clarity of mind is there. So automatically, I think mentally you feel stronger.
So do you want to share with us the misconceptions and myths that goes around veganism?
We've grown up believing that meat is basically the only way that you can get protein, right?
But science says that as well, that the high density of protein comes from meat.
Of course, I'm not saying there's no protein in meat. Of course, there's protein in meat. My question is, can I also get that protein that I want from my plant-based foods?
Can you? Today, we are diving into a subject that's reshaping lifestyle and global conversations: veganism. Joining us is Malavika, a passionate advocate for veganism, sustainability, and ethical fashion. In this episode, we explore the intersection of fashion, veganism, and environmental impact, uncovering how our choices influence not just our health, but the planet. We also delve into fascinating topics like the difference between plant-based diets and veganism, whether milk is truly essential for humans, and how lab-grown meat is redefining the future of food. Malavika shares insights on sourcing protein, nutrient-rich vegan options, and the idea that veganism may be a privilege. For those curious about adopting this lifestyle, we discuss vegan-friendly places around Delhi and highlight inspiring global figures who champion this movement, exploring how small changes can make a big difference. Whether you're a vegan curious, or simply looking to understand the movement better, this episode promises to be a thoughtful and enlightening conversation. Let's dive in with Malavika. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we dive into today's conversation, I just wanted to take a quick moment. We looked at our analytics and noticed that 93% of you who watch our videos regularly aren't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying our content and want us to keep going with more insightful conversation, we'd really appreciate if you could take just a second to subscribe. It might seem like a small action, but it goes a long way in helping us grow and bringing even more amazing content your way. Thanks for your support. It means the world to us. Now let's get back to the video. Malavika, welcome to Diary for Publisher.
Thank you for having me, Shiva.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you for that. To begin with, I'd like to start a question in the direction of your purpose and the reason to being a vegan. You're also known as Mala Goes Green.
Correct.
When did Mala go green?
Well, so Mala went green 4.5 years ago. But I think publicly, in terms of my page, I started that a couple of years back. And I think a year back is when I really sort of quit my full-time job. And now I'm fully focused on all of this. So.
And what drove you towards going green? Like, what was your incentive, your purpose of going green, if I may ask?
I mean, I think even before I did this, I was always someone who would keep thinking about the ethical aspect in terms of the meat and dairy industry. And I think it definitely bothered me because even though there were all of these things explained in terms of it's a necessity and there's like good options in terms of meat like grass-fed, etc., that you can opt for, and you don't need to question the fact that there's cruelty associated with all of this. It was not something I was ever fully able to accept, I think. So it was a journey that I went on questioning it. And by the end, the conclusion I suppose I came to was that, no, I don't think this makes sense. And I want to align my lifestyle with something that makes sense to me. So that was kind of...
When we say green, it means veganism, right? So, but there's a misconception difference between veganism and plant-based.
Correct.
Do you want to tell me a little more about that?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of people tend to use the terms interchangeably. However, someone who is plant-based is basically talking about how when it comes to their diet, they are only having plant-based foods. But that does not mean that their entire lifestyle is coming from, say, an ethical lens, whether it's food, fashion, I'm sorry, not food, fashion, beauty, or other aspects of their life. They're not necessarily being plant-based with those items. And I think a lot of times it's to do with health reasons. So if you're diabetic or you have some specific sort of an ailment, you might have been advised to go plant-based for that reason. So those would be plant-based people. However, if you're vegan, it means that you've adopted being plant-based as your entire lifestyle. So whether it is the clothes that you're buying or the general, even household products sometimes, right? Like if you're opting for a leather sofa versus, say, any other fabric which is not animal derived. Someone who's practicing a vegan lifestyle will never opt for the former option. That's primarily the difference. I think vegans are looking at it as a lifestyle holistically, and someone who's plant-based is only talking about it from the lens of food.
The dietary preferences.
Dietary preference.
So what does your day look like? Food is one part. Like how do you make decisions in terms of being a vegan? What's different decisions you have to make for it?
I mean, I wake up and first I go into the sunlight so that I can perform a little photosynthesis and, be one with nature. No, I'm kidding. I mean, my lifestyle, I don't think I've really changed it in terms of what I would do before going vegan. I think it's been more of just replacing certain things with the vegan friendly options, right?
Mm-hmm.
So day is basically just, you wake up, you go about work, you're eating all the plant-friendly foods basically, and it's not been that long for me in terms of being vegan, and I mean, some would say it's been long if it's 4 years, but I still feel like I'm discovering new things every day, and I love that. So a daily lifestyle, I mean, it's literally it's not very exciting. It's like, you go, you work out, trying to be healthy, obviously, and that and it's something new every day, because I feel like right now I'm doing a lot of different exciting things. So I just kind of go with the flow.
The different reasons that one goes vegan. One of them is ethical consideration that you spoke about, your reason was.
Yeah.
Let's speak a little more about the ethical consideration. Where do people go wrong in believing that what they're doing is right?
It's, sadly, we've all grown up with a lot of these misconceptions that have been fed to us as absolute truths, right? So for example, you have to have your glass of milk, otherwise तुम्हारी हड्डी weak हो जाएगी, or like your bones will not grow, or you will not grow, or meat is the only way that you can get your protein. Animals are treated nicely in some of these slaughterhouses. So these are things that when you grow up being told by pretty much every adult, all the ads that you see as well, you do not question it. And I think that it's not something that we intentionally pick. We're not like, yeah, we will not care about animals. In fact, on the contrary, most of us would identify as animal lovers, and we would never intentionally harm an animal, right? So I think for the longest time, I was very much, my thought process was aligned with this way of thinking. But I think slowly with time, as I kept coming across different pieces of information, other maybe activists or just people like in my daily life that I would encounter, who would shed light upon some of these issues, is where the questioning of it started, right? Where I was like, do I really need milk? Is it actually that good for me? Or are animals truly being treated in a manner that is actually ethical? Or so once that questioning started is where I started, probably I would say, doing my own research into it. Of course, now there are so many books and documentaries that one can also watch to know about all of this. But even simple Google searches, I would say, can give you information that you would, for example, like almost 80% of the world's population is lactose intolerant, which is a crazy number if you think about it, like 70 to 80%. And you would be like, why then are we told that milk is such an important dietary requirement? It does not link up, right? If we're supposed to be having milk, interesting tidbits of information like that end up opening your eyes to the fact that maybe all of this was not really true to begin with. Times have changed. We live in a world that's very different than even, I would say, 30 years ago what it was. And when you factor all of that information in, I think that's where I was like, I need to go vegan. I think you did want me to explain it more from an ethical perspective. I can deep dive into that as well. But
you spoke about milk, right? So milk was actually a marketing gimmick in the US just to scale up the production of milk during the World War, the ending of World War II. So milk was created, was was produced more and more for the soldiers in the army, in the armed forces. But because the World War was short-lived, there was excess production of milk, and the industry had grew already. So they then marketed milk as a everyday household for kids. That's why we talk about milk so much, and we're not aware about the negatives of milk that you going to be speaking more about right now.
Correct.
Let's start with the dairy industry.
Okay. In fact, on that note, before I start, there's a very iconic Steve Jobs speech in which he calls out the dairy industry for basically being like, marketing wise, we were all duped by the dairy industry. And he was vegan himself, by the way.
Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm. And he, like, in this, it was a marketing related thing, but he called out dairy in this, and it's there on YouTube and a bunch of platforms for anyone who wants to see. So yeah, I think a lot of people were aware of this sort of marketing gimmick that was going on with dairy. But actually getting into it, again, I think most of us can relate to the whole thing of milk is what makes your bones stronger, and that's how you'll grow and everything. But the milk today that you're getting is usually adulterated anyway. So it's not exactly pure milk that you're getting. And even if you are nutritionally, if we focus only on calcium, you're getting that same calcium, probably a cleaner calcium from a lot of the greens out there. So spinach is a great one. Broccoli is a great one. The seeds, nuts and seeds are very calcium rich. So anything nutritionally that's coming from milk is actually available in plant-based foods. And it's probably a lot cleaner. And actually, I mean, I don't want to get too much into this because I think, a nutritionist is better to consult for the same. But bioavailability of these items is basically a way of talking about how much of this nutrition is actually absorbed by our body. So, for example, milk may have 20 grams of calcium. I'm pretty, that's not the actual number, but your body may only absorb 5 grams by the end of it. So those are also interesting things to factor in. And so milk is not some magical worker for your body. Everything is available in plant-based foods in a better, more digestible format.
True.
Again, going back to the lactose issue, it's not supposed to be meant for us. And that's because like every other mammal out there in the world, a mother will produce milk for her baby. But for some reason, we've chosen cows and a few other animals here or there as their milk is okay for our consumption as adults. That's why we are lactose intolerant. Lactose is something that mostly when you're in your infancy stage is digestible for you, not at later stages. So there was definitely something, I think, for years when it made sense. It started out as something that maybe we can eat. It does not make sense anymore.
But us as a species has evolved by able to digest milk, according to you? Do you think so?
I don't know how much from an evolutionary perspective it has played a role in terms of our growth. I'm not sure. Of course, I think, we've eaten meat. We've consumed milk for years and years. But two things that I would say on this is we've done many things for years and years. And then we have changed the way we did it because times change, we change, requirements change. So I don't think it's necessary to hold on to everything that happened in the past and connect it to that's why, or use it as a justification to continue doing it in the future. Because new information presents itself, right? If you're looking at any of the top nutritional institutions in the world, so you have NHS in the UK, you have the American Dietetic Association in the States, WHO, all of them have said that a plant-based diet is perfectly healthy for all stages of life, whether you're pregnant, whether you're an infant, whether you are breastfeeding, etc. So this is the top institutions in the world saying that. They've classified quite a few meats and dairy items under different categories of carcinogenic foods. I'm not saying that you can't consume meat physically. Yes, you can do it. But again, and this is something we can touch upon from a biological lens, we are optimally designed to eat plant-based foods. We are not optimally designed for meat. So sure, you can do certain things, but it doesn't make it the right thing for you, I would say.
Mala, if you were to give a pitch to someone in an elevator,
oh no,
on why you should not consume non-vegetarian food, go ahead.
Okay, you're elevator pitching me right now, huh? If you're someone who wants to be healthy, if you're someone who wants longevity in your life, in life, obviously, and also you don't want to unnecessarily harm animals or the environment, stop having meat, because it's literally the core of pretty much all of these issues out there. So from all three perspectives, whether it's your health, whether it's the animals, whether it's the environment, just ditch it. And also, if you don't feel a difference, then by all means go back to meat. But I think that most people who do it correctly in a balanced format will immediately see a lot of differences. And I think then from within, you'll kind of want to keep doing it.
Sold.
Okay. So I'm going to check in on you though in a month's time.
For sure. So we spoke about the ethical part of it. Let's touch on the environmental part of it as well.
Right. A lot of, I think 75% of the agricultural land in use, which is majority of it, is being used to grow food for the livestock in meat and dairy. That's a lot of land. Now, immediately, if say tomorrow we were to just let go of meat and dairy, all of this land is freed up. And let's say even a certain percentage of it cannot be used to grow food because it's grazing land, etc. You still have more than enough to feed the 8 billion people who are currently, I think, at least 1 or 2 billion. 1 billion is still starving, right? But we are feeding 92 billion land animals with no issues. Like, that makes no sense. And from an environmental perspective, the second you're getting rid of all of this and focusing using your land for not only feeding people, but also a multitude of other things, or letting a lot of it be in its natural format, it fixes so many problems for the world. Your deforestation is immediately, it goes down. You are not producing so much of the methane, etc., which is associated with meat and dairy. In fact, a lot of times people are like, no, it's not the major polluter. You know, you have your oil and gas companies, you have your automobile industry. And of course, those are huge, huge players who are making a lot of terrible decisions for the planet. But I believe meat in terms of methane production is actually even higher than automobile.
Yeah, because it's quantity, right?
It's quantity. And so these are things like, but you still will have all these climate gatherings, etc., where meat is being served and no one's really talking that much about it, which blows my mind. I'm like, how are you not talking about one of the most important contributors to this issue? Because I guess, again, I mean, then you get into the politics behind a lot of that, which...
Can you tell the audience, why does livestock release methane?
I mean, of course, I think a lot of people would know it's to do with their flatulence. So cows, etc., they obviously, basically end up releasing that into the air. And that's a massive contributor to the methane levels at the moment. So I would say that's one of the main reasons. But other than that, you're looking at, to produce, I believe, one cheeseburger, so a little bit of beef, the amount of water that goes behind it. People love to talk about, no, but almonds are very water intensive, or, avocados are not sustainable. And yeah, sure, we can have better farming techniques for all of that, but it is 1/30th or 1/40th of the amount of water and resources being used to produce that 1 pound of beef. So I'm not saying we ignore the farming plant-based issues, but they are nothing compared to what's going on with meat. So when you're using that much water, you're using that much land, you're using that much food to raise this one cow that you're eventually going to slaughter for its beef. The environmental aspect of all of it is horrifying. It's horrifying if you deep dive into the numbers of it.
It's unsustainable for the future. But to support what you said, I've got a fact that I'll throw at you.
Please do.
I was reading about 1 acre of land could feed 20 non-vegetarians, 20 meat eaters, or 1,000 plant-based eaters.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people
see the difference.
People also, this is where people forget that the animals that they're eating are also being raised and fed food, and they need land and they need all these other things. So you're not just like, the cow's not magically appearing, or that pig is not magically appearing and then you're just eating it immediately, right? Like, it's a whole process behind raising it and then eventually slaughtering it. Resource intensive in ways that I don't think people realize at all, because people don't think about this that often.
What are your thoughts on the lab-grown meat that is coming up, like mock meats that we see a lot of companies like, I'm not forgetting names, but what do you think about the lab-grown meat?
So mock meat and lab-grown meat are different.
They're two different things?
Yeah, because mock meats are basically mostly, I would say, soy-based imitation meats that are being put out there. Lab-grown meat would be basically actually taking, I think, a little bit of that animal's DNA and then creating a perfect imitation of the meat. So that's still something, obviously, that I think is waiting for some regulatory approvals, which I believe have already started happening in a few countries like Singapore, etc. And a lot of people are doing research into it. I think it'll be a game changer for people who really don't see themselves being able to eat without having that meat component in their meals, because the cruelty then is not associated with it, but you're still getting exactly the taste that you crave. But that's something to be seen. I think it's still very in its R&D stage, but it's happening everywhere, and I think it'll be a game changer. Mock meats, I think you have brands like Imagine Meats, you have brands, a lot of brands actually right now, Good Dot,
Beyond Meat, I think so.
Beyond Meat outside. Imagine would be an India-based brand, obviously.
Okay.
Blue Tribe actually is also great. I think for people who do want to once in a while, like kind of try and be a little more vegan friendly, those are great ones as well to experiment with. It's an important thing, I think, to focus on from a transitionary perspective. However, personally, I enjoy just, enjoying my plant-based meals as is. I've discovered new plants, new things after going vegan. So I think it's been a lot more exciting for me to kind of just create beautiful dishes just using that. But I can understand for someone who's not ready to let go of that taste of meat yet, but does want to be more ethical or from a health lens experiment. There are great brands out there that you can try out.
What kind of change have you seen in your body since going vegan? Because I'm sure the sleep cycle improves, your digestion improves, your blood circulation improves. You want to tell me more about this, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't go vegan technically for health reasons. It was for ethical reasons. But fortunately didn't have some massive health issue I needed resolved. However, I mean, touch wood, in the last 4 years of being vegan, that has continued to be the case. I hear my friends talking a few times about certain, especially I would say, digestion or skin or gut related issues. I just don't have, fortunately, any of that happening to me. I feel like when you're giving your body exactly what it needs, your body will thank you for that. Even from a skin perspective, any dermat I've ever gone to, when I bring up diet, they'll always say, please cut down on dairy if you can for a bit.
True.
Because dairy is directly linked to not great gut health, which eventually affects your skin. So this is something I didn't even know till I, met that first dermat who pointed this out to me. And I was like, oh, well, I'm vegan, I'm off dairy. And she was like, perfect. And then the second dermat says the same thing. And I'm like, oh. So I think it's cool when you start realizing these little ways that like plant-based diet is good for you. And obviously, I mean, this is how I feel. I also like to get that confirmation from a medical perspective. So I do my blood tests every few months as well, just to make sure everything's on track. And my last one, I think, was a month ago. Touch wood. Like, I think even a couple of things that had been a little bit off in the previous test I'd done, all of it is fine. And I was not taking any supplements. I was just trying to be really mindful with the foods I'm eating. So, to get that confirmation as well felt good. So I won't say that I've had that, moment of I had this health issue and then it was magically resolved. But I've not faced any issues since going vegan.
You feel different though? More energized?
I do. I think it's not just about being energized. I also feel like there's clarity of mind. There is just a general, because you're not feeling down because of any health ailment, you're just automatically able to function better. People will also occasionally give you a compliment or something and you're like, what am I doing differently? And you're like, maybe it's just my diet. I don't know. The inside glow ends up coming. And that's what I tell myself anyway. And that's what I tell my friends. I'm like, guys, that's why you need to go vegan. But yeah, I think no complaints at all.
What about the mental well-being? There's a mental well-being attached to being plant-based or vegan as well.
I haven't really looked into it from a scientific lens, so I don't know. But like I said, energy levels are higher, clarity of mind is there. So automatically, I think mentally you feel stronger. You feel like, yeah, I'm waking up and doing things that are bringing a lot of satisfaction to me. And I don't have, obviously none of us are perfect every single day. You have your days where you want to relax and chill. But overall, it's been great. Because I do read about people who are like, I tried being vegan for a little bit, but whether it was low energy, whether it was appetite issues, whether it was something. And I can't relate to that because it's not like I had something miraculous happening when I started going vegan. I just researched everything and kind of tried to follow a balanced diet and all of that. I do think if you do it right, you should not be facing any issues. And also, this is my personal experience, but also corroborated by a lot of, like I said earlier, institutions signing off on it. So I think approach is important. Keep it balanced, as is the case with any diet. Yeah.
Since you interact with a lot of people, your friends, community around you, and you're always speaking about the benefits of veganism as well. So do you want to share with us the misconceptions and myths that goes around veganism?
There's so many. Like, I still will encounter a person who will be like, oh, but you don't look vegan. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be looking like? I'm supposed to just, So it's still like at that core level, people are like, they don't really truly understand what a vegan lifestyle is. But in terms of misconceptions, I think where do you get your protein would have to be one of the top few. I think.
Tell me more. Let's answer that.
Protein, I think, again, going back to what we touched upon a little earlier in terms of we've grown up believing that meat is basically the only way that you can get protein, right?
But science says that as well, that the high density of protein comes from meat.
Of course, you are getting, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you're having 100 grams of chicken, that's around 25, 30 grams of protein at least, right? Which I'm not saying there's no protein in meat. Of course, there's protein in meat. My question is, can I also get that protein that I want from my plant-based foods?
Can you?
You absolutely can. So for example, and this is currently what I'm obsessed with, which is tempeh. Shout out to Hello Tempeh, which is the, I would say, primary brand making tempeh in India right now. Super. But 100 grams of tempeh is around 21 grams of protein.
Wow.
Which is, okay, it's not 30 grams as chicken maybe, but 20 grams is, if I'm spacing it across my meals, I'll get enough from it. And also, I think people tend to forget when you're eating non-vegetarian meals, a lot of your focus is only on that one meat item. When I'm having a meal, I have my tofu, but I will also factor in all the other elements. It's never going to be just tofu, right? So I'll have tofu, I'll have dal, I'll have veggies, some green. There are things like nutritional yeast, etc., that you can sprinkle, seeds that you can sprinkle. Pumpkin seed has 30 grams of protein per 100 grams.
Wow.
You're not going to have 100 grams of pumpkin seeds, but a sprinkle of that is a little protein. So overall, I would say most of my meals, even if I'm not like planning it per gram, if I'm just keeping these components, I'm hitting easily around 25, 30 grams of protein just in that one meal.
One meal.
And again, I feel like some of the issues that are associated with meat, right? So you're getting that protein for sure, but you also are getting a little bit of cholesterol, you're getting certain things which are not ideal for your body. And none of that is there with plant-based food.
True.
So from that logical perspective, I'm like, yeah, I don't need meat. Sure, there's nutrition in the meat, but I don't need it. I can get it from plants.
There's also perception about tofu or soy not being good for men.
Correct.
Do you like to break that myth like we were discussing earlier?
Yeah, in fact, this is another myth that I think it's a question that has come up a few times. I think the easiest way to kind of put it across is if estrogen in soy was such an issue that men could not consume it because they get man boobs or become more feminine, etc., then where are all the the soy-based products in the market for women who maybe want to grow their chest or want to manage their PCOD, which is quite a big issue? There's not a single product in one of the most capitalistic industries out there, which is women's beauty, right? There's a reason behind that because it's absolutely not true. It's a huge exaggeration. Too much of anything is never good for you. But again, I think the too much that we are talking about in this case would not even be humanly possible. So it's an absolute myth. There's no scientific evidence behind this statement. It's just something that people have been saying for ages, like soy boys and these terms that exist. But you can literally Google it right now and you'll get clear answer being like, no, this is not true. And in fact, the estrogen that is present in soy is good for us. It's a healthy estrogen. And I think dairy is the one. Dairy has a certain type of estrogen in it, which is not that good for us. So no one will talk about that. But this is what, again, scientifically, nutritionally, the data is telling us.
What else? What are the other myths that you want to speak about?
From a food perspective, I think protein we've already done. I think another one is that there is ethical slaughter that exists. And so if I'm consuming, say, free range or grass fed animal meat options, then I'm kind of being ethical in my choices.
How? You're just being good for good for your health, but how is it ethical?
It's not, but people genuinely will hold on to that. And I've had multiple people kind of come and be like, yeah, I can't stop eating, but I'm picking these options. So I'm not so bad when it comes to this. And I'm like, so is it better if we believe that to be true, which it's not anyway? Because again, free range is literally from a chicken's perspective, legally, I think around this much area, it counts as free range. So we think free range is some endless farm that they're allowed to roam around freely on. That's not the case anyway. But also, if that was the case, you're saying that I'm giving this animal 5 years of a life that's slightly better than one who is caged up. And that makes it better to kill them by the end of those 5 years and eat them. Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, I understand their logic is, I'm not allowing that animal to be captured for an extended period of time and then being killed.
You're not raising them to kill it, but you will eventually kill it.
It's the same. It's like farmers will be like, I love my animals and I keep them alive till I have to kill them. So, it's like...
But they'll die eventually themselves, isn't it?
Of course, eventually. But then if you look at the age of slaughter for pretty much any animal, I think for cows, it's around 6 to 8 years. Pigs, again, it's lower than that actually. I think 4 or 5 years or something. And their actual lifespan, so cows live up to 18, 20 years or something. So you're killing it much before its time. It doesn't need to die. Again, if you think about it from the lens of, do you need meat to survive in today's day and age? And I'm not talking about any of the, say, tribal communities, etc. out there. My page on Instagram, I mean, I'm pretty sure they have things to do which don't involve going on my Instagram page and being like, oh, we need to go vegan. My page is for people like you and me, who are living in cities, who have access to all kinds of grocery stores, all kinds of foods. And if you're able to get all your nutritional needs from them, then, like, as far as I'm concerned, there's no need to kill that animal because you're not also living in a survival scenario anymore, right? So I think from that lens, the whole thing of it's okay if I'm picking free range, ethically raised animals, it doesn't even, I don't get the logic. So that's another one. Outside of food, there is the leather component that exists where people are like, it's a byproduct. Again, it's something we've been told for a long time to not feel bad. But truth is, it's a co-product. Leather is a very valuable material for a lot of companies out there. A farmer buys the cow, factoring in the money he's going to get at the end after selling it for its meat and skin and all of that. So it's a co-product. Anyone who is like, it's a byproduct, I'm like, it's never a byproduct. It's a co-product, and let's stop buying these things when you have fantastic brands out there. Like, if you're looking at it from an international lens, Stella McCartney, who's one of the more prominent designers, she just did her show in Paris Fashion Week, where, it was literally centered around save what you love and not using any animal materials in whatever she's creating. Like, it's time we stop killing animals for fashion. And that's one example, but there are a lot of other interesting brands like Kani, Nanushka. Within India, I think there are quite a few places. Anita Dongre just released a entire line of fashion accessories made out of vegan leather. Vegan leather is valued at, I believe, 80 billion in the coming years, I think 2030 or something. It's a lot of these options that are out there. So I'm like, why do you need to go and pick that one leather bag when there are all these other beautiful bags out there, and you still can enjoy fashion? You can still, do the things you love. Make more mindful choices as a consumer.
Well said. Would you say that these alternatives that you're talking about are costlier than the normal leather product or a non-vegan product?
It depends completely from brand to brand. Of course, if you're looking at anything which is in the luxury space, it will be priced high. But, you have brands like Zook in India, very affordable, making all kinds of things completely vegan friendly. So it really will depend on the option you're picking. Even vegan leather itself, you have different types of vegan leather. So if it's got a lot of PU in it, which is not as environmentally sustainable, but still, I would say better than a dead animal skin, that will be cheaper than, say, vegan leathers that are not using any sort of plastic element in it. So the range exists like it does with even leather, I would say, right? Like you have leather which is more expensive because it's coming from baby, like calves, etc., because they're softer. If it's, so like I think a lot of these Birkins or even crocodile skin based things, like all of this is going to be priced higher than say a leather which is I don't even know really, I mean, what exactly would be the cheaper leather, but the range exists. And again, leather people are like, no, it's more natural, it's better for the environment. I'm like, all of it is processed completely in these factories before being turned into bags. So if your concern is that you don't want to get that vegan leather because, oh, it's got plastic in it, I mean, also look at the leather that you currently own, because I assure you it's not that environmentally sustainable. So it's the same logic. You're just applying it then to things that are not coming from animals.
It all boils down to being a more conscious consumer at the end of the day, because I've had a lot of different conversations on the subject, and the end result is being more conscious about it, what you are drinking, what you're eating, because everything in today's time is adulterated.
Correct.
Having said that, would you say veganism is a privilege in the 21st century?
That's a great question. Also, I think this is something that ties back to the myths that we were talking about earlier, because this is, again, one of the myths that exists. So there's a documentary, I don't know if you've seen it. It came out last year, I want to say, on Netflix, called Live to 100, where this gentleman called Dan Buettner, he embarked on this sort of journey to visit the
Blue zones,
correct, which are the longest living people in the world. And most, if not all of them, were from very, almost, I would say, rural towns and little farming sort of areas, and spread across the world. Like we have Asia and Japan one, somewhere in South America, US, every different continent, little zones where people Italy, who have consistently lived 200 years plus, right?
Yeah.
He's not vegan. He did not embark on this journey with any agenda other than just really understanding from a holistic lens the lifestyle of these people. And at the end of his documentary, he went vegan, because across these communities that were not rich, they're not people who have an immense amount of money to spend, 90 to 95% of their diet was plant-based. They were having meat sparingly. And he's like, to him, he's like, the fact that each different region that I visited, it was the same story. He was like, I have to go vegan. He went vegan after this, even though that was not his plan, just looking at the evidence from a longevity perspective. So no, I'm not saying you don't have expensive items when you are adopting a vegan lifestyle. Sure, if you have the money to get those things, that's fantastic. But if you're someone who does not have access to that much, let's say, monetary resources, everything you need to follow a vegan lifestyle is absolutely available. Like, I mean, how much do your pulses or, general food items that I would say form the foundation of most of our diet in India, I mean, that's not that expensive. You don't need to focus on the what about the mock meats and what about those are the extra things, right? Like if you want to incorporate, you can. But at a foundational level, there's no privilege that is required to follow this lifestyle.
I would say it would be easier for Indians to turn vegan or plant-based, because we are anyway quite a religious people. We believe in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism eats none of these as well. So for us, it's easier because we are anyway, 60% of our population is vegetarian.
Yeah.
For the people who might be listening to us, you want to share their alternatives or diet that they can eat and be vegan?
Sure. Again, I feel like, every person should tailor it according to their taste and their preferences. So that's like, the subjective element of it that feel free to approach.
Let's talk about Mala's diet in a day.
Okay, so my thing at the moment, I think I've already mentioned tempeh, but yes, like tofu tempeh.
What does your breakfast look like?
It's never one fixed thing, by the way. I'm not someone who's into I can't have the same thing every day. But primarily, I like to do pulses-based kind of breakfast. So either I'm having chilas, which are like, again, you can play around with it so much. You can use so many different seeds to make that chila for yourself. Of course, there's avocado once in a while with, again, bunch of veggies mixed into that. I love sprinkling nutritional yeast a little bit or seeds on top of whatever I'm having. You also have, if you are interested in egg replacements, etc., that you can make literally using tofu. So occasionally I'll have my tofu scrambled eggs as well, and have that with a little toast. Sometimes even a paratha, like now at this point, I'm having tofu parathas as well. So it's literally whatever my mood is, as long as I know I'm like using one of my main protein sources in it. Also, overnight oats. Actually, chia seeds are a fantastic source of many nutritional things. So once in a while, I'll do my overnight oats. So I love to play around with my meals, but I think at this point, I have those few fixed items I go for. Lunch, I think, is my probably most fixed meal that I end up doing, which is again based around one of tofu tempeh alongside some sort of a pulse or bean based, whether it's rajma, whether it's dal or variation of dal, rice, roti. Again, roti, I really try to make out of whatever I can get a little bit more of a protein kick off out of, and some sort of vegan yogurt. You have your raitas and everything available now very easily. If you don't want to make it at home, you can also make these things at home. So it's like, again, I think what most Indian households in North would be having as their meals. I just have my few vegan elements involved. South Indian vegetarian food is actually one of the most vegan friendly things you can opt for, because they're not very dairy reliant. Most of it doesn't use dairy. So we're idli, sambar, dosas, all of this is like the easiest kind of Indian food that you can opt for. So much street food as well. Dinner is where I like to go a little, like I'll maybe do a pasta or a noodle bowl, edamame, things like that. Like I discovered butter beans and Brussels sprouts, like the large Brussels sprouts. All of these are also nutritional wonders. And butter beans.
Butter beans.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've not tried it yet, right?
I haven't.
Only tried it after going vegan. It's basically like if you take rajma and you make it slightly bigger, and if you like make it a little creamy, oh my God. It's like please promise me you're going to try it, and then you can call me and thank me after. But that's literally what I've been doing. I go and I find all these amazing plant foods, and then I just incorporate it in some fun way. There's so many people making so many vegan recipes that they post on social media platforms. I'm constantly inspired by whatever I'm seeing. And then I have, thankfully, the most wonderful, fantastic person at home, Suresh Bhaiya, bane of my existence, who loves to then kind of create these foods.
Who's a vegan as well, you were telling me.
He is pretty much vegan, especially after he understood my whole reasoning for it. He was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm also going to start avoiding milk and all. In fact, he didn't have milk to begin with. He, again, couldn't tolerate it. There was no tolerance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I can't give you that one fixed thing, because genuinely I'm always experimenting, as long as I know I have that one main component of my protein in the meal.
Kind of hungry now, but we must go ahead. What does your family, your friends think about you not eating the same food that they are?
It's a mixed bag, honestly. I think my grandparents are definitely like, what do you mean no ghee? Like, ghee is so important. And so you have that happening. So in my family, my younger sister has gone vegan as well.
Wow.
So we are the two vegans. The rest of my family is vegetarian. I would say none of them are also very dairy obsessed. I think cheese is the one thing that is keeping my younger brother from taking that. He's like, once you give me the perfect cheese, I'll do it. Which I get. Like
that is vegan cheese though.
Of course. But
does it taste good?
I like it. I'm happy with it. But again, it's interesting. I think now over time, I don't crave those things anymore. Even though I have them, I have alternatives at home. I'm not sitting and like missing cheese, because now I have all these other foods that I enjoy so much. And I think my brain has rewired to understand that food is not dairy, not meat. So I think eventually you get to a point where you're not even thinking of it as I miss it. It's more like, that's not food. I'm going to focus on what I believe is actually food for me.
Would you feel guilty if you by mistake ingest any of the non-vegan stuff?
No, because you know what? End of the day, we are living in a world which is primarily not vegan, right? People aren't sitting and running restaurants or making products thinking of it from a vegan lens. If it happens, and of course it's happened a few times where, I've literally been at a restaurant where I've specified, and then I'll have a bite of this pasta or whatever, and I can immediately taste that it's real butter in it, because also, when you've not had it for a while, I think your taste buds are able to detect these things. Now, I'm not going to be like, I'm a bad vegan, I've done this, oh my God, I'm gonna like combust or something. It's like, it's fine. It's a mistake. It happens. And then you just move on from it. Because it's like, what are you going to do torturing yourself because you accidentally consumed something?
Or the waiter.
Or the That's true.
So I would like you to tell me some brands that I could switch on a daily, which are vegan friendly.
There are quite a few now in India.
Not just for food. I'm not just talking about food. I'm talking about fashion, cosmetics, even though I don't use a lot of cosmetics, and food, of course.
Okay. I think.
And also restaurants. Sorry to interrupt. Also restaurants which are in Delhi, in India, which are vegan friendly.
Okay.
And yeah, which you go to often.
Okay. So let's do it one by one. Okay. First, we have a lot of restaurants in Delhi that are 100% vegan already. So you have People of Tomorrow, which is in the PVR Priya complex. You have Canvas V, which is another one.
Canvas V.
It's in the In fact, it's quite near you. It's in the Malviya Nagar area. There's a new one that's just opened up in GK called Agama Cafe. They're trying to do farm to table, but also 100% vegans. So these, I think, would be the 3 of my favorite 100% vegan restaurants. Having said that, I think if you're going to any place that's Asian food is, again, from a vegetarian lens, not dairy reliant. So like China Kitchen, even though they do have actually a separate vegan menu, you can go there and just have whatever. And it's like maybe one item might be something with dairy, but it's already vegan, basically friendly.
You missed one of my friends' chain that I'm not happy about. He won't be happy about.
Are you talking about Greener?
Yes.
Of course. Greener, I was just coming to, because the thing with Greener is, I think they are in fact one of the OGs as well. So originally started this, and I think their menu is 90% plant-based. That's why I didn't put them in the 100% category. That's the only reason.
All their meals could be vegan.
In fact, they have, Greener is the one that started it when I had just gone vegan. None of these places I named existed. So I had just Greener, honestly. Love Greener. I'm so sorry. I was just not naming them in the 100% category, but started this movement, and I think they have some fantastic items. And again, being creative with the food, right? It's not like they are just taking out the dairy from it and being like, here you go, this is vegan. Like, they're actually putting thought and love behind that food. And that's, I think, another very important thing. A lot of times people will go to the wrong place and try vegan food, which is not something that love has gone behind, or too much thought. And then they'll be like, I can't eat this. You have to have that love behind that dish. And I promise you, it's like so yum. So Greener and all the other 3 fantastic places to go to.
Could you go to a normal restaurant and request to avoid ghee, cheese, butter?
I do it all the time, because I'm like, even if they say no to me, I hope I'm not the only person coming and requesting this stuff, and they realize that this is a demand that they need to now start catering to. I actually like to believe that some of the places I did this at and then they got vegan menus, I'm like, yep, nice. You're welcome. Probably not just me, but I love to go and be like, yeah, like, why do you not have anything vegan? Very rare though in today's time for me to go to a place and be told there's nothing for me. Having said that, of course, long ways to go, I think. There are still places trying to do maybe not as much as they should be doing in terms of putting these vegan foods out there. But I think that's something that gradually with time is going to end up happening. Lots of places to go and eat out at. Just request them to, maybe make it vegan friendly, unless it's some sort of a pre-mixed thing, in which case it's like, sorry, it's already got egg or dairy in it. I don't see why they would. Dal Bukhara, which is again an iconic Indian place, they have a vegan dal bukhara now they're doing. Yes.
Wow.
So, it's like people are...
Does it taste as good without ghee and butter?
Amazing. It was yum. And I don't know if they're using some sort of like a vegetable ghee in it or something, but it was so rich. I would have not even guessed it was like the vegan one. But then, you call them, let them know you're coming, and then they make sure that there's a vegan option available to you.
What do you think of the perception of India and acceptance of veganism, for that matter, as a lifestyle? Have you been seeing a lot of people turning vegan?
Yes. I think in the last, I would say even just 2 years of me having been vegan, like if I would go on, say, a Zomato and type vegan as my filter, maybe 8-10 places would have popped up. And now it's like I don't even know how many places there are because it's a list that I don't usually reach the bottom of. So this cannot be happening just randomly, right? There has to be demand for businesses to be also moving in this direction. So certainly the demand is increasing. I don't know if all of India is going to go vegan tomorrow, but do I think that a lot of consumers are going to start being more vegan friendly in their lifestyle choices? Absolutely. Because whether it's for ethical reasons, whether it's for environmental reasons or health reasons, there's an overwhelming amount of data out there to show the benefits of being plant-based. So I definitely see it being more prominent and a growth taking place to a certain extent for sure.
Because you advocate for the lifestyle and you're doing great, by the way, with your social media.
Thank you so much.
Do you get any sort of hate for being a vegan or, pushing for veganism?
I do get some hate. I think even before I started the page, I had like this brief moment where I was like, you do know that people aren't going to like read vegan in the bio and be like, wow, I must check this out. There is that category or section of people that just are not open to it at all. And that's fine. That is not the audience that I am catering to end of the day. I think when you're doing anything which involves change, you will always have naysayers and you have to know when to tune them out and when not to. Sometimes, in fact, I enjoy like listening to some of their perspectives because I think it gives me a different way to approach explaining what I'm trying to do with veganism. So I don't take it personally. I don't take any of the the offbeat comments that come my way in a way that I'm like, no, I'm like, my feelings are hurt. I get it. It's not something everyone is welcoming to. I just focus on the people who are curious about it or who are maybe kind of trying to understand without having biases involved what I'm talking about. And that's the only way to go. And it's like I said, it's not something specific to just veganism. I think any of these, if you're trying to do anything which is not the norm,
True.
you're going to have some sort of resistance.
For sure, yeah. Is there any particular project that you're working on which is based on your lifestyle at the moment?
My most important project is my page at the moment. I think, now I have a community around it and I'm really trying to start putting more content out there, which I think is really helping not just people who are already vegan, but also people who are vegan curious, I would say. So definitely, I think that's been, anyway, so far, all of my journey has been on that platform. So I want to keep making it better and better for people to be able to.
Why I ask you that is because I see there's an influx of people wanting to try this lifestyle. And with that, there's always a business opportunity that comes with. Do you have any ideas for the audience? Because I believe that there's no competition if you're sharing an idea about business. It's always nice for more people to do it. So is there any business idea that you would like to, for the audience to think about, maybe in the line of this lifestyle?
Absolutely. I think, again, there's like a misconception that there aren't that many people who are interested in veganism. So from a business lens, maybe I don't want to do it. But if you look at the numbers in terms of the vegan market or the growth rates that are being associated with it, like I think vegan beauty is valued at around 20-30 billion already and is growing at some 10%. I think its expected growth is around 10.4%, if I remember exactly right, till 2030. So that number is going to keep increasing. Again, it's hard to value the vegan food market because I think it focuses more on just your meat and dairy alternatives or soy-based products. Of course, it's not just that, but even that itself in India till 2023 was valued at 1.52 billion. Is there money in this space at the moment? Yes. Now, in terms of what are the options available, again, it depends on you. You can get into food. There's so much happening in the food space. You have companies like One Good, Good Dot, Wesley, Mock Meats, I already mentioned. Blue Tribe is a fantastic one. A lot of well-being nutrition, Fasten Up. These are companies trying to get into wellness from a food perspective, releasing all kinds of vegan-friendly supplements for you, including collagen alternatives, etc. So a lot of that in the food category, but even again, beauty is a fantastic place, I would say, to enter at the moment. Lots and lots of money being put into this space. Fashion, of course,
Nice.
vegan leather alternatives, silk alternatives, feather alternatives. All of these are things. Victoria's Secret has just announced they're doing a show after a really long time. And they are known for their iconic angel wings, which were made out of real feathers. And this is the first year that they're only using 4 feathers for cruelty reasons. So, these are now examples being set by globally recognized brands as well. So I think these are spaces growing at the moment, whatever your area of expertise is. There are VCs that are focusing only on plant-based businesses, such as Ahimsa VC, which is actually a Delhi-based VC. You can go and have a word over there, understand from them what are the businesses that are actually profitable. So I think options, in fact, are too many is the thing. So I don't want to tell someone, no, align yourself with this one specific thing, because it is a nascent and growing space. I think align yourself with what you would be best at executing.
But before that, of course, try the lifestyle yourself first before you start a business.
100%.
Only then you'll be able to connect with your customers or the business itself.
I mean, I think then the authenticity and love behind whatever you're creating will come through. I don't think you necessarily need to be completely vegan if you are only doing it from a money-making perspective. I wouldn't say that I would be against someone who's doing that, as long as you're making more vegan-friendly products accessible.
True.
But I think, yeah, of course, if you're vegan yourself, I think it makes it so much more than just a business you're running then. Then you have that purpose with it as well.
Is there a lot of greenwashing in this kind of business that we're talking about, that people just say that they are doing enough in order to be sustainable and be more vegan or sustainable and not deliver?
100%. I mean, I think more so from a sustainability lens. I think because the metrics around what really is sustainable and not are still a little bit, people can mess around with it. Vegan, I think, is now a little bit hard to do greenwashing around, in terms of you, especially in food, cannot be putting something that's not vegan friendly and then labeling it vegan. But sure, maybe there's some people who don't realize that certain things are actually animal derived and they just kind of put it there. I don't know if that's happening. I'm pretty, I check the ingredients before I get anything. So I normally am, not coming across too many vegan foods at least. But fashion is a very, I think, scary place in terms of greenwashing. Though I think now people are calling out a lot of people who are trying to do it. So I think that tide is changing already. But yeah, I think sustainability, people are literally doing things like, I'm using organic cotton, so I'm sustainable. And I'm like, that's not exactly how it works. And then as a consumer, because you don't have all this information, you'll just read, oh, it's a sustainable brand, I'll go and. So again, I think a little bit of research goes a long way, because these things are not that complicated to understand. And I would say, yeah, don't blindly trust every brand. I think you can't do that, because they want to make money, and it's trendy at this point for a lot of them to be considered more green.
To conclude our conversation on the vegan lifestyle, the best way to conclude would be to throw out some cases, that they're living cases, some athletes, some singers, some people like you.
Of course.
Do you want to share some case studies, some athletes or any people who've been following the vegan lifestyle and thriving?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few people, and a lot of people that I really like. So, for example, there's Lewis Hamilton, who is, I mean, anyone who follows or does not follow F1, I think knows who he is. He's a long-time ethical vegan. He keeps talking about how he's not interested in being a part of what goes on with the meat and dairy industry. And obviously, at his level of competing, you do have to be very mindful of what your nutrition is, etc. So clearly, he's not been facing any issues. Well, other than Max Verstappen, maybe to an extent. But anyway, that's just a F1 thing. But then you have Djokovic, who's also now vegan. I think at the start, maybe he was doing it more for plant-based health reasons. But I believe he's now also aligned himself with the vegan movement. Venus Williams. In the Olympics right now, we had 4-5 vegan athletes who won gold, silver across different events, including fencing, where gold was won. And I believe that was also the highest cash prize in all of the Olympics. From an entertainment perspective, Ricky Gervais, who is one of the most well-known comedians, he's been an ethical vegan for a long time. Even Romesh Ranganathan, another comedian who is brilliant. You have so many singers at this point. Harry Styles, I'm not sure if he's vegan. He's definitely been meat-free for a long time. Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, actors, again, it's like a bunch of them. So like I think in Benedict Cumberbatch is a long time vegan. Game of Thrones has a bunch of people who were all apparently vegan. I've just recently discovered. So it's fun. I keep finding all these, very big personalities who are absolutely crushing it in their spaces, who've been long time vegans. So, a lot of times when people are like, I can't do it. And I'm like, then how are all those people not only surviving? I mean, if you talk about survival on a vegan diet, they're thriving and doing the absolute best. And yes, in terms of me and people like me, there are definitely now people in India who are doing a lot of this.
Virat Kohli as well, I think so.
Virat is, I believe he's gone vegan again, but he's not like come out and confirmed it. But I do know that he's been he's definitely vegetarian. I don't know if he's done vegan. It's a bit of a question mark. Him and I think Alia Bhatt has also been suspected of being vegan. Were not confirmed. But there's this new, I don't know if you're aware of this new actor, Vamika Gabi. She's doing really well. She's posted occasionally on her Instagram as well about being vegan. Jacqueline Fernandez is vegan. There are quite a few, again, within India, actors and I don't know about singers who are coming out now and talking about how they have actually been vegan. I do hope that we have more people actually, I'm like, where were all you guys earlier, right? I'm hoping more people also come forward. But yeah, literally in the last couple of years, I've heard these new names. So many now models out there as well. Alicia Kaur, I believe, is another very well-known model and also vegan activist. So, I mean, I can keep naming people as I keep remembering them.
Yeah, so the idea is there's enough success stories for us to be inspired and take an action.
Look, at this point, I don't think people who try to question if a vegan diet or even for that matter, vegetarian diet, where people are like, it's not doable, it's not possible. I'm like, there's literally, forget evidence. There's people who you're surrounded by who are doing this. So I don't think the right thing anymore or even logically consistent anymore is to question whether a vegan diet works or doesn't work. I think the right question now is how does it work and how can I make it work for me if you want to do that. But I don't think the validity of it is now with all these institutions, all these people again and again, all these documentaries coming out, showing again and again. There was a twin experiment as well that came out on Netflix a while back. Medical documentary looking at people being given plant-based diet versus omnivorous diet. Even the doctors themselves being shocked that in such a short span, they could see actual results, which are proving in different ways the plant-based diet is working.
True.
So I think people need to kind of shift that perspective if they're willing to and start asking the right questions. And I think you would be surprised at what all you end up learning.
Right. One perspective I want to give you before we end today's conversation is, of course, we need to change our habits, our decisions, our decision-making in terms of how we consume. But we don't have to go cold turkey. We could also take steps to remove and improve our habits as well.
Absolutely.
One way that I read about was a way of going vegan or vegetarian for the weekday and being your usual self on the weekend. So it's called weekday veg.
Veg.
Yeah, if someone wants to try, I would urge them to, because it's a great idea to start change in yourself, because some people can't drastically change, overnight. So this is one way to change. I don't know how you think about it, because you're still consuming meat, but you're reducing your impact on the environment and the planet.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, I'd already gone through my journey of going back to vegetarian and then I did vegan overnight. But any of my friends or anyone who reaches out to me being like, I really want to try this, but I don't think I can give up this specific item or whatever. I always say to them, I'm like, just start with what's easy and then take it from there. So if, for example, there's someone who's like, actually, I don't care about dairy that much, but I cannot stop having chicken. I'm like, give up the dairy then and take it from there. So yeah, sure, either you do what you suggested, doing certain days of the week or doing certain items to begin with, whatever you feel is not impossible or overwhelming for you to start off as your starting point, just do that. That's better than doing nothing, I would say. And, then just take it from there. However it progresses, I think it's your own journey. We're all adults. We can decide what we want to eat, what we don't want to eat. I think it's just important to be open to new information out there. As long as you're open to it, you'll figure out what it is that you want to do. So,
Beautiful. So before we end our conversation today, we have a new tradition at Dive Publisher.
Okay.
That the previous guest leaves a question for you.
Okay.
Earlier, I wasn't telling my guest who the next guest is, but today I did mention about you. And since the person was into sustainability as well, it was a good way to leave a question. So he says, how can you start a vegan business which will reduce the impact on the planet in the next 40 years and remain our planet in the 1.5 degrees Celsius category that we are in at the moment?
Okay, wow, that's a very big question if you think about it. But I think the answer to this would be fairly simple. I think anyone who is creating any business out there, which is moving away from the conventional practice of using animals, and as a result of that, using too much land, too much water, too many resources to enable any of it. The second you are giving an alternative to any of those options, you are automatically contributing to not letting the global levels of methane, etc., from hitting that critical point of 1.52 degrees, right? So whatever your business is, if you are being more mindful about whatever you're creating, you're already on the right side as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you want to scale it at a global level, if you want to kind of make it something which is that impactful, obviously that takes time and it will depend on what the business is that you're creating. But I think as long as you are doing it with the right intention and creating something which is of actual use to people, that people are like, yeah, this is something that I care for, whether it's a service-based offering about nutrition, which a lot of people are very mindful of. Why would they not opt for those options? So I don't want to give advice in terms of how you go about building that business and marketing it, etc. But I would say that if you're thinking of creating something which is being kinder to the planet and giving people an alternative that they need, that they're looking for, and it does not exist out there, I think you'll be fine. You'll do all right. So
nice.
I think that would be.
I make sure to ask my guests 2 personal questions as well. I've been asking you a lot of personal questions, but 2 more questions for you.
As you can see, I love talking. So
First question is, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self who hasn't been vegan yet? Your 18-year-old self. Not just, doesn't have to be on veganism, could be about life as well.
Yeah, I think just keep reading, keep learning, and I promise that perspective that you want to have when you're older, it'll come to you. And I do think, like, when I look back at my whole journey, really and truly, there was one book I read when I was, I want to say 15, 16. It's a very well-known book called The Outsider by Albert Camus. It had introduced me to the existential school of thought, okay? Which, I mean, I am still a good kid, okay? Not a kid, an adult. But the whole thing of questioning norms around me, it did not exist till I read this book and understood what that main message within it was.
What's it called again?
The Outsider. It's also, I think, called The Stranger, like, 2 names it's been published under. And again, the existential school of thought is what? Like, in a nutshell, it's about don't blindly accept whatever norms have been created around you. Question, use your own reasoning, your morality, and then decide what actually is correct or not correct. Great book in case someone has not read it, and very short read as well. But I think that seed of questioning what I'm being told about how the world exists and why certain things are okay, not okay, definitely started when I realized that this existential school of thought existed. So in a sense, I would also count that as a step towards me eventually going vegan, because then I did question, why do I have to have meat? Why do I have to have dairy? Why do we have to harm animals in order to exist? Like, even from a spirituality lens, I mean, if God wants us to kill innocent animals, then what does the devil want from us, Like, it's just, I'm not saying that it has to be the same line of thinking for everyone, but I think that's what I would tell my younger self. Like, keep reading, keep having good conversations, keep being open-minded, and you'll realize what it is that you want to do with the rest of your life.
Well said. You're the first person on Diver Publisher who answered both my questions that I asked at the end in one. My second question was based on a book that you wish you would have read earlier in life,
No way.
and you answered that with the first question.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to hear that.
Is there any other book you want to suggest to the audience that you wish
I-
you would have read earlier in life?
I mean, that's my favorite, obviously. But there are so many fantastic books. I think from a vegan lens, there's this really good book called How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. I think it's
How
an
Not to
interesting.
Die.
Yeah, it's a cool book. I think that's worth reading. Then there's Ed Winters, who's one of I would say the most prominent vegan activists out there. And he's written a couple of books, including The Vegan Propaganda, which is great. So, vegan, I think these two books are good starting points for anyone who's curious. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, I think Outsider is where I would like to.
Just the end note, because you said How Not to Die. There's this man called Brian Johnson
Okay.
who is working on a project of his own body to extend his life as much as he can.
I've
possible.
heard of this person.
And he is a vegan himself as well. So it's a good end that, a person who's not trying to die quicker
Yeah.
is turning vegan.
Honestly, there's every other day I'm reading more studies associating plant-based diet to longevity. So, I mean, at this point, I definitely believe that to be true. I think, we have a long intestine because it digests plants and fiber, not meat. That's why you have so many people who get colon cancer, etc. It's literally because the meat ends up rotting in the stomach on the way to being digested.
True.
I think it's like super. I mean, I know I'm getting excited thinking about it, but I just love that these conversations are happening. And I hope more people are able to connect with it and make those changes.
I hope with our conversation here, we're able to inspire or educate people with, just the concept and the idea of a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Has been a beautiful conversation with you. Learned a lot of insights from me. I'm sure the audience took it as well. Thank you so much for sparing the time and sparing your time for Diary for Publisher.
Thank you for having me. I truly had a great time having this conversation.
Thank you very much.
The Outsider. It's also, I think, called The Stranger. There's two names it's been published under. And again, the existential school of thought is what, like in a nutshell, it's about don't blindly accept whatever norms have been created around you. Question, use your own reasoning, your morality, and then decide what actually is correct or not correct. Great book in case someone has not read it, and very short read as well. But I think that seed of questioning what I'm being told about how the world exists and why certain things are okay, not okay, definitely started when I realized that this existential school of thought existed. So, in a sense, I would also count that as a step towards me eventually going vegan because, then I did question, why do I have to have meat? Why do I have to have dairy? Why do we have to harm animals in order to exist? Like, even from a spirituality lens, I mean, if God wants us to kill innocent animals, then what does the devil want from us, Like, it's just, I'm not saying that it has to be the same line of thinking for everyone, but I think that's what I would tell my younger self. Like, keep reading, keep having good conversations, keep being open-minded, and you'll realize what it is that you want to do with the rest of your life.
Well said. You're the first person on Diary for Publisher who answered both my questions that I asked at the end in one. My second question was based on a book that you wish you would have read earlier in life.
No way.
And you answered that with the first question.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to hear that.
Is there any other book you want to suggest to the audience that you wish you would have read earlier in life?
I mean, that's my favorite, obviously. But there are so many fantastic books. I think from a vegan lens, there's this really good book called How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. I think it's
How Not to Die.
Yeah, it's a cool book. I think that's worth reading. Then there's Ed Winters, who's one of I would say the most prominent vegan activists out there. And he's written a couple of books, including The Vegan Propaganda, which is great. So, vegan, I think these two books are good starting points for anyone who's curious. Otherwise, I mean, I think Outsider is where I would like to.
Just the end note, because you said How Not to Die. There's this man called Brian Johnson who is working on a project of his own body to extend his life as much as he can.
I've heard of this person.
And he is a vegan himself as well. So it's a good end that, a person who's not trying to die quicker
Yeah.
is turning vegan?
Honestly, there's every other day I'm reading more studies associating plant-based diet to longevity. So, I mean, at this point, I definitely believe that to be true. I think, we have a long intestine because it digests plants and fiber, not meat. That's why you have so many people who get colon cancer, etc. It's literally because the meat ends up rotting in the stomach on the way to being digested.
True.
I think it's like super. I mean, I know I'm getting excited thinking about it, but I just love that these conversations are happening. And I hope more people are able to connect with it and make those changes.
I hope with our conversation here, we're able to inspire or educate people with, just the concept and the idea of a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
Has been a beautiful conversation with you. Learned a lot of insights from me. I'm sure the audience took it as well. Thank you so much for sparing the time and sparing your time for Diary for Publisher.
Thank you for having me. I truly had a great time having this conversation.
Thank you very much. We at TOAP are working really hard to take this podcast to the next level. Our guests are going to get even better. Our production quality is going to get even better. And hopefully, I'm going to get even better too. Most importantly, we are committed to being consistent and continue to do what we love the most. Until then, keep reimagining yourself and know that the power of change lies within you. Jai Hind.